Lightsaber duels have never seen a day without controversy. The original Obi-Wan and Vader duel on the first Death Star, in hindsight, is not well regarded, mainly because the Bespin and Death Star 2 lightsaber duels are so much better. Though I will note the duel on Death Star 2 was actually slow and lacked much of the action since it was trying to play up the drama, and it does work in its favor. When the prequels hit, people were also critical about how over-choreographed some of the duels were, barring a few exceptions, such as the under-choreographed Mace versus the Chancellor. But the prequels are done. The children who grew up watching the prequels are now adults, and besides nostalgia, what exactly has been holding the duels of the sequel trilogy and the Disney era in general back? Because the duels of the sequel trilogy are slower and more cumbersome than the prequels. Even Ahsoka versus Maul in the Clone Wars Season 7 is much more fluid and lively. And yeah, that's because it was motion captured, so the skill to do the duels is there. I think it's less a matter of choreography and skill and more of a matter of props. See, during stunt rehearsals, notice what they are using, and this was for the Phantom Menace. They're using some kind of metal alloy rods. Ewan McGregor went on the record saying the prop sabers of the prequel trilogy couldn't exactly handle the high energy duels, so they often bent during rehearsals and during takes. And that's something Hayden Christensen also brought up. They would trash the lightsabers and get sabers from Thomas the lightsaber prop guy. Hey, I guess they already paid for this, so they might as well use the broken rods for practice, while the ones for actual takes get to be fresh and new. Eventually they'll be overwritten by the special effects anyways. Though, in the actual takes, some of them actually had to be slowed down, according to Ewan McGregor again, Duel of the Fates, for instance. Not the Duel of the Fates was a soundtrack. The duel between Maul, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan had to be slowed down because, they were just going at it. So, the sequel trilogy. The sequel trilogy and beyond, this is actually what the props look like without the special effects. In the sequel trilogy, they used sabers that glowed. See, now they have an LED in them, and, well, it corrects an issue, the glowing blades issue. When you look at the lightsabers of the prequel and the original trilogy, they don't exactly glow. Yes, they are glowing here, but you don't exactly see Qui-Gon's flesh lighting up green or Obi-Wan's flesh lighting up blue because of the light emitted by, a lightsaber. The glowing sabers make sense to fix this lighting flaw. But as we know, life is all about trade-offs. The trade-offs, according to Ewan McGregor, again, is that these lightsaber props tend to wobble compared to the alloy props. I would also assume these are either heavier or at least more fragile when it comes to handling them. I feel like the props aren't the only cause of issues, obviously. I think they are a primary issue, but you can have many primary issues. The other primary issue is the editing choices. I find a lot of them highly dubious, such as this one where Kylo and Rey duel on the second Death Star wreckage. It seems like nobody wants to do long takes anymore. See, when filming a movie, this isn't like filming a TV show. You just start the cameras in a TV show, and then after the scene is done, the scene is done. However, when it comes to movie making, they will sometimes go, okay, let's do all that again, except from a different angle. And maintaining continuity is pretty important here. One has to wonder whether or not the props being more fragile and thus we need to cover up the wobbling mistakes, or are just really bad at editing because in general Hollywood doesn't do as long of a takes as they used to do, is in effect here. I also question whether the whole sentiment where these lightsabers act more like baseball bats and clubs rather than actual blades comes from the fact that they are using these LED prop sabers. I heavily doubt it's Disney mandating them to simply not do the mutilation that we're used to in Star Wars, because A, droids exist, and we know that droid mutilation does happen in Disney's Star Wars, and B, well, This is Star Wars we're talking about. Let's not be a fool. That's my general sentiment. Lucasfilm chose to prioritize the glowing LED lights in the lightsaber props in order to get better lighting. The problem is that these props are cumbersome and wobbly, so they had to write around that, and they had mixed results. The Acolyte could do it fine, the sequel trilogy not so much. We always had to write around issues with props. Remember, the only reason the Death Star has an equatorial trench is that the halves of the actual Death Star prop, because this was the 70s and they had to use models, was at risk of shrinking and then just being unusable after that. So it made sense they had to correct something, and it works. Those are just my thoughts. Please consider liking, subscribing, tipping the channel on Ko-fi. This is Cyril signing off.